All right, we are live. Awesome. Well, thanks to everyone who is taking some time out of their day on this beautiful Thursday for what is now episode 40 of Beyond the CMS, where we really discuss all things content operations and CMSs and the future really of content and content production and publishing. And we're going into our third year here, and we've got a really interesting, super special guest, Tom Cranstoun, with us today, who we can also call the MX guy. Tom, welcome, and thanks for joining us. Pleasure to have you on your show. Just before we get into the deep dive here, I do want to let everyone know that's tuning in now. Feel free to ask us some questions. I'm going to do a little side monitoring of the LinkedIn chat, and we'll do our best to get back to you live in the show, or we'll follow up shortly afterwards. And for folks who are watching this in the future, either listening on Spotify, Apple, all the podcast places, are on YouTube, put some comments somewhere, and we do keep our eyes on the boards here, and we want to do our best to follow up. But we've got some super cool discussions today. Tom, why don't I just let you introduce yourself, because you'll probably do a much better job than I will, but it's just a real pleasure, and thanks for making time out of your day. I know you're on an island in the Mediterranean somewhere right now, so thanks for taking time out to join us.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, my phone, sorry. Hi, Chris. Yeah, thanks for inviting me back on the show. It's the second time, and I really enjoy our chats here. Yeah, I'm Tom Cranstoun. I've worked in the AEM world, Adobe Experience Manager. I've spent a long time building large websites for large corporations across the planet. And I've been working with AI for the last 2 years. A couple of years ago, I realized that AI is better suited for reading content rather than creating content. Creating content creates a lot of risk, but reading content is what AI is now doing. It is visiting people's websites, summarizing, comparing, making recommendations, ordering, listing, doing all sorts of things with your content and sending it to the users. However, most websites today weren't written for AIs to read them. They were written for people. And what you do for people is completely different what you need to do for machines. And that's what I've been working on. How to make it better for the machines.
Yeah, and I know part of that collection of things you've been working on has been some audit tools, and you've been kind to share some of that with me, and look forward to talking a little bit about that as the show goes on. But maybe let's kind of break it down. Our typical listeners and watchers to the show are CMOs, VPs of marketing. There's a marketing bent, and sometimes the terminology and the technology is moving faster than folks who have stuff to do during the day have to keep up with. But how do you kind of lay the groundwork for some of the thinking that you're doing?
Well, yeah. A couple of years ago, I started to think hard about this process. You see screens that are designed for eyeballs with things like toasts appearing and floating up to the top of the screen, or accordions that flip open and shut, and you get different micro animations happening on your screen, which are great for people. But when an AI comes and it scrapes the HTML off your site, it doesn't look at the CSS, it doesn't look at the rendered pages, it looks at the HTML that you're sending down, or perhaps it takes a screenshot and sees something at 1 second into your presentation on the web, not the actual content that's hiding behind it. So it gets a stilted view of what your website looks like, your content, which means it may miss your messaging. It may miss the reason for building the site. You may miss the sales. I call these invisible users. They're invisible to your analytics, and they're invisible to your sales. They just don't turn up. They have a quick look at your website, go, no, not for me, move on. Find somebody else's website, somebody who's got a bit more semantic meaning, who's got a bit less micro interactions, who are doing things not with JavaScript, but with HTML and JSON and the metadata that you need in the background. So having nice flashy websites attracts human eyeballs, but as Adobe has proven last Christmas, the agents are really hitting the websites now. There was a 700% increase in the amount of agents hitting Adobe hosted websites last Christmas. So there's a lot going on here. And if your site isn't designed for them, you're going to miss the traffic.
Yeah, we've been figuring out the right language to use to communicate this to our customers and our prospective customers. And one of the analogies we have is kind of like an iceberg where humans are reading the top of the iceberg and there's kind of pretty pictures and copy, but the bulk of the activity is trending towards bots reading all of this stuff. And it's not difficult to get your site prepared for the bots either. There's a bit of a practice involved in that. And do you want to talk a little bit about maybe what's the low-hanging fruit on kind of at least following best practices to be creating content that aligns with what the humans see for the bots?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. One is that, yeah, when you design for humans, you have to be aware of the cognitive ability. Humans can only hold 5 or 6 things in their head at once. So you present the information piece by piece by piece. But unfortunately, the machines want it all at once. Going piece by piece by piece slows them down. So you have to design 2 different views which are presented simultaneously. The full information for the machines and the step-by-step for the humans, and make it clear which is which. It's also a bit like the Americans with Disability Act and accessibility things in Europe. If it's made easy for somebody who can't see the screen to be able to understand what's happening on the screen, then you're actually making it easier for the computers to understand what's going on. So if you treat a computer like a person with a disability, then we should have fixed this 17 years ago when the disability thing came out. But it's now an imperative to get the structure right, to get the framing right, to get the metadata right, and to get the HTML right. So that's a simple practice, to sit down and work out what's missing to help these invisible users, these people who are glancing at your screen and moving on. So that's part one. The second part is to look at your micro interactions and the steps that are happening in your websites. One of the other things that I think about is the headless architecture. I know that you focus a lot on headless work in Dotfusion, Chris, but headless is sometimes a barrier to agents, because the agents won't necessarily execute your JavaScript and complete the actions. They may just pull down your HTML and just look at the HTML. Different agents have got different capabilities. There are 1.5 million models at the moment on Hugging Face, and in 3 months, another million will be added. It's so fast. And Hugging Face isn't the only repository of models. Any corporation with sense will be building their own models in-house and keeping it secret from the world. So you can think there's probably 2.5 million models out there already, any one of which may come and look at your website. If you're using a foundation model, OpenAI, Grok, Claude, then they have got superpowers. But if you've got a scanner that's scanning a barcode, it might have a model on board. It might only have a few million parameters. It might not be very clever. So you have to design your websites to work at all ranges of models, all kind of LLMs, not just the top of the market ones.
That makes a lot of sense. And just for our viewers who are getting familiar with this concept of metadata and schema data, can you just break that down into kind of layman's terms? What are those? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's metadata. Metadata, data about data. That doesn't help people. The best way to describe this is it's like footnotes. Footnotes in a document. We all know you're reading the document, you get a little number, and down at the bottom of the page, it gives you a wee bit more detail, perhaps a link to a website. That is actually metadata. It's telling you something that you might not need to know all of the details to understand what's going on. But if you want to dig a little bit deeper, then the footnotes will tell you more. And when you're working in the academical world, people usually create piles and piles, and you find out that the footnotes are sometimes bigger than the document. But in normal writing, in normal books, if you're reading fiction, you don't get footnotes. But in technical books, yeah. If somebody's made a statement and they want to give you the provenance and tell you what it's all about and more detail, a little footnote at the bottom of the page, you can read it if you want, you can ignore it if you want. Personally, I read every single footnote I come across. And I'm creating my own books which explain the machine experience, the MX, which is what I'm calling it, the MX guy. It's different from UX, which is user experience. We talked about the user experience, short attention spans, give things to them slowly. Machine experience, infinite attention span, give it all at once. These two things have to blend together. And metadata is like footnotes. It's additional things you don't really need to know unless you really need to know.
Yeah, one of the examples I use to communicate what metadata is, and many people are familiar with, when you take a photo on your mobile phone and you look at it later and you look at the info and it tells you the aperture setting, the time of day, where you were. It's all that data associated with the photo to give you some clues on what it's about from a more of a technical perspective almost.
Yeah, it's like a footnote for your picture. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Everything has got metadata. If you look at a PDF, it's got who authored it, how many images are in it, how many words are in it. Those are all hidden inside the PDF. If you look at a scripting language for a program, HTML for a website, they have comments. And those comments are actually metadata. Mm-hmm. They tell you something extra that you don't need to see on the screen. You don't need to know to run the program, but it gives you extra things like who wrote it, when it was written, why it was written. And these are forms of metadata.
So key point is, for those of you who don't know, every, let's call it, page of your website should have some associated metadata that describes to a robot or an AI bot what is it that's on that page technically. It could be structure, it could be how it's scaffolded, but you also mentioned schema data just to make things a little more spicy. What is that?
Oh, that's the technical definition from, well, it was Google and Microsoft set up schema.org many, many, many years ago. And its intent and its use is for common things like pricing. There's a structure that you apply to pricing. A very good case in point. I was looking for a holiday. Oh, I'm currently on holiday. I do a lot of this. I was looking for a holiday last year, and I got Claude, in this case, to search some venues for me, some destinations. It was a cruise. And it came out with a bunch of cruise companies. And one of them came out at a price of $200,000 for a 1 week's cruise in the Danube, whereas everybody else was around about the $1,800. And I thought, $200,000?
It's pretty deluxe.
What's gone wrong here? It had created a table of cruise companies' prices and hadn't structured them according to any internal guidelines. It had just gone off, grabbed the websites. Now, the Europeans use commas and dots a different way round from us Anglo-Saxons. We use 2,00 to mean 2000 and .00 to mean and no sense. So the Europeans do it the other way around. They say 2.00, 00. So Claude got confused by different websites from different companies. I was looking for a cruise on the Danube, which is a European destination, and I had British companies and European companies mixed up in the table, and Claude got confused between the pricing from two different cultures. The way you get around that is that you use a schema.org, which decorates the pricing in a fixed manner. Schema.org says, and it's firm, that you must always use decimal points to separate the major currency from the minor currency. You must always use no commas to split up the hundred thousands of whatever you're talking about. So it's a structured way of ensuring that you put that into the document in a machine readable format that doesn't get displayed on the screen. So that's what schema.org is all about. Good other things that happen, we all know about the American date format and the European date format, where we swap the day and month around. That causes confusion. But if you use schema.org and microdata, there is a rule that says that you put it in year, month, date order. And then the machines can look for those elements rather than the prose elements that you have on your page. You put the prose up for humans to read and the schema.org for the machines to read. You put both on the page and it keeps both audiences happy.
Cool. So we've got your human data, copy images and things that make you feel good and give you some information. We have metadata associated with the page and what's on it and how the bots can quickly assess what's happening. And then we have schema data, which puts structure to patterns of data that you'd see on many other sites, so it can kind of harmonize all of that at once. And now we've been tracking Google and Shopify's kind of conglomeration around putting together this idea of a universal commerce protocol, which is somewhat related as well. But I believe what they're up to is they want to provide a standard for the bots to deal with commerce and commerce workflows. Do you want to share a little bit about what you know about that?
Yeah. It starts off, well, it's a bit about WebMCP is in a similar vein, which is another standard which has come from Microsoft. And these are the things that are helping the agents to operate in coherent and aligned manner, so that they all do the same thing in the same way at the same time. But before they can get to that point, they have to decide that they want to do UCP or WebMCP with your website. So they have to understand your website enough to be able to say, yes, this is a candidate, let's go for it. I think that there are 5 stages you have to go through before you get to the sales point or the CTA point. You're not talking about an agent coming and buying things off of you. It doesn't happen just like that. You have to be discoverable, which means that you have to be in a thing called the common crawl. All of these agents are trained on a body of work, which is a majority of information from the open internet. Things that haven't been excluded by robots.txt, things that have been included by your sitemap.xml, things that are historical in nature. Many, many years ago, perhaps, you published a website once, there's this tool goes through the internet and creates a massive body of everybody's website and pours it all together, taking the HTML and the text from the HTML. It doesn't look at the CSS. It doesn't look at the JavaScript. It doesn't look at LLMS.txt. It just takes your HTML and structures a view of everybody's website that it can find that is publicly shareable. Now, this gets updated about once every month and gets fed to the LLMs perhaps once a quarter, maybe once a year. It's very, very slow process. It's the historical process that the training is done for the machines. So the machines get given all of this information, and then the companies spend billions reading this, structuring it, extracting information, and building the backgrounds, the non-live stuff that the machines know about the world, the internet. And it's not just HTML pages. They take books, they take magazines, they take print, they take any kind of human communication that they can and suck them into this giant crawl. I've written an article about the common crawl on my website, and it's a massive piece of work. About 44% of the common crawl is in English, and no other language it reaches above 6%. So if
Hmm.
you're a German user, you're better off prompting machines in English than you are in German.
Yeah.
And if you're a Canadian user, you're much, much better off prompting the machines in English than you are in French.
Yeah.
The machines have limited other understanding. It was all written by tech bros in America. Come on, guys. We have a problem there.
Mhm.
But so I recommend prompting and using AIs in English gives you a much, much, much better result than going for a language variant. Especially since the language variants themselves, if you take German, you've got Swiss German, you've got German German, you've got got different Germans. If you go to French, you've got Canadian French, French French, you've got Caribbean French. So, and Spanish is even worse, of course, because all of the varieties. So when you go to a minority language, you're one step off. I'm saying discovery, that's the first point, common crawl. Then you've got to get citatable. You have to have enough good information in your historical information before the machines can cite you in a question without them having to go off, search, and find you. So there's that. Then there's the third point is you've got to be available live with pages that return HTML that can be read by the machine, not just a view script that has to be interpreted. Then you have to have enough structure on the page for a live result. There's no point in a machine giving you the price for Apple Mac that was 2 years old on a website that's way back. It needs current pricing today, up to date. And new machines are coming out, new Macs coming out all the time, as we've just seen this week. So the pages have to be live, up to date, searchable, scannable, and readable by a machine. And when you get to all of those points, you can then consider the Universal Commerce Protocol. If you fail in any of the ones leading up to them, it won't matter, because you won't be in the commerce marketplace if you've failed anywhere else in the steps. So commerce is glue on the top that makes the machines line up and understand. Using the commerce protocol means that they have got a way to get standard data back from your website, and that standard data must still be MX compatible. If it doesn't, you may give it an answer, but the answer has to be congruent. It has to be decorated with metadata. It has to have the correct structures for pricing, etc., or else the machines may still hallucinate. So the UCP doesn't fix the problem. It orchestrates the machines. You still have to do the machine experience to fix the problem.
Yeah, and it's from an agency perspective, it's making the vision and the sales process quite difficult because we have so much to explain. It's kind of like we're building these F1 cars now where most people just think they look cool because the aerodynamic package and the livery looks sweet. But the amount of engineering that goes into a highly performant website is insane. And it's a long process to justify the value, when in the marketing mindset, it's like, let's get this done and out there like we've always done for 20 years. And it's kind of discussions like this that I hope people get a chance to sit down and listen to, and just to start to get the idea that there's a lot of engineering under the hood. And what do you do first, and how do you prioritize it to a budget? And you got to get something done. And at the end of the day, our customers are like, they're expecting this perfect thing that's infinitely thought out. But anyway, I know you've spent your life in kind of AEM land, and you know a fair bit about content platforms. How are you seeing the impact of platform in all of this AEO discoverability?
Well, yeah, that's a good one. One of the things that I cover in my book is the idea of it's the sovereign data, the fact that you own your data. If you're selling on Amazon, Amazon has got your reviews and they hold on to your reviews. And if you decide to switch platforms, switching from Amazon to Alibaba may not be on the cards, but you're switching platforms. You leave your reviews behind. You've lost out on things that you have built. You built trust up with your users, and you've got a lot of things in there. These things actually belong to you. They don't belong to Amazon. They were created on Amazon, and the platform owns them, and the platform is using that as a lock-in to keep you on their platform. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. Now, my books and my philosophy is that this is sovereign data. It belongs to you. It doesn't belong to them. It was created because of your interaction with your customers. It may have been hosted on a platform. I see the future where the CMS is responsible for taking those reviews, internalizing them, and publishing them as metadata with provenance and the author's name and where it was created and why it was created and when it was created, and publishing it in an open way such that the platform doesn't matter anymore. You own your sovereign data, and it travels with you, and it's not locked in a CMS. It's not locked in a platform. It's actually at the publishing point in the HTML that you serve to your customers, to your bot, your agents. There's no point in having a web page that says I'm good on Amazon, because the AI isn't going to go and have a look at Amazon after it's looked at your web page. So you need to keep this as part of your enterprise asset layer. I call this EAL. And this enterprise asset layer is the things that you own, the what that you do that is currently spread. You may have a bit on Twitter, a bit on X, a bit on Amazon, a bit on wherever. You need to hold this as your sovereign data and make that part of your offering to the machines.
You brought up an interesting point about the history of your assets, of your domain, and for the past a little over 2 years now, we've been actively researching how do you actually get found in an AI search or GEO or AEO or what have you. And what I was trying to do was establish a theory that I could be somewhat argumentative against the amount of people on, let's say, LinkedIn, for example, that have the secret to getting found. And there's a lot that goes into getting found, and there's a considerable amount of luck at this point, frankly. But there are things that you can do. So one of the starting points is define, what do you want to get found for? We still have customers that say our SEO sucks. And we're like, well, what do you want to get found for? Like, how do you know it sucks? Like, what are you actually addressing? So for us, and back to your earlier point, we build large-scale headless websites as our primary product. And you're right, there are all kinds of tricks with Next and React and making sure that your JavaScript is presenting nice, clean stuff. But we had a target for kind of best headless agency in Canada. So a bit of geography in there, clear focus, a bit kind of niche, long tail. So I don't know, after about a year or so, we start coming up in the front of Chad and Claude and those guys for that keyword. And I'm like, well, okay, we've been following a protocol, but like, why is it actually that you have us ranked first? And Chat said back to us, it said, well, you've been around for 25 years and you say on your website that you're the best. Like, what is going on here? And it's like, I thought it was our Wikipedia citing and our clutch reviews. And that, as I discovered later, is foundational to that thing that it got back to us. It kind of made it as simple as that. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of structural work to do. And what's really made a difference for us is building schema and mostly schema. Our metadata was always pretty good, but really unique schema. And something that not a lot of folks have mentioned to me, we go back and update our blog posts that we had posted from 3 or 4 years ago. And there's a bit of a movement of like, are we getting penalized by having stuff up there that was a little bit keyword stuff from 5 years ago? Now it's just this lurking kind of like space garbage stuff sitting around. So instead of destroying them, we've gone in and updated them. Say, here's a fresh problem that we talked about.
I would think that's a jolly good idea, Chris. Yeah, I need to do that to my my stuff is well out of date, because you talk about what AI was 2 years ago. It's completely different now.
Yeah.
So my blog post, yeah, okay, good point, very good point. Yeah, keep things fresh, keep them interesting, not just the machines, but keep people interested.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe there could be some confusion, and you could help with some clarity around, like, even the difference between GEO and SEO, and how are they alike? How are they different?
Ooh, yeah.
So, surprise question for you.
A very surprised question. And I'm thinking hard here. I mean, SEO is, it's how you get your stuff into Google is what SEO is all about. And that is a historic process. Whereas GEO is how do you get your stuff now into an AI, which is urgent and immediate. So there's a difference there. I see SEO as being like the common crawl we discussed earlier, and the GEO being like the live web search that you do now. So there's SEO tends, in my mind, is setting down historical anchors that say who you are and what you did, whereas GEO is what you are doing rather than what you did.
What you did, yeah. Interesting way of thinking about it. Hey, this is a problem with this show where, like, all of a sudden we run out of time when we really get going. But I'm cool to stay on because I really wanted you to share a little bit more about your MX audit. And I just thought that, I don't know if you're open to discussing that, but if you are, I think it'd be really cool. Also, parts of the show get syndicated as little snippets, and I think this would be a really great one. If you can just tell us about, what do you call it anyways, the MX audit?
Yeah, call it MX audit. Everything I'm doing is MX something. That's why I'm the MX guy. Machine Experience. Awesome. Machine Experience, the handbook, is the book I'm publishing on the 2nd of April. I have a free chapter, which I'm going to pass around to anybody that wants it. I also have MX, the protocols, which is coming out in July, which is really in-depth. Really in-depth. It's 1,000 pages. The handbook's only 200 pages. The protocols is huge. And MX, the audit. What we do here is I have used my book to train a machine to look at people's websites, and it does it in a scripted manner. So it takes a look at your website and does what Screaming Frog might do for SEO. It does it for Machine Experience. So it takes a look at your website, it looks at the HTML you serve, and it looks at the HTML that's rendered, so that it can catch the difference between a simple view website or a server-side rendered view website, an Adobe EDS website, etc. It looks at both stages, and it can tell what a simple AI will see and what a complicated AI will see. So it looks at those things. It looks for micro interactions. It looks for accordions. It looks for videos that autoplay. It looks for all of those things that may confuse a machine. It also looks for the key anchors, like your robots.txt, your LLMS.txt, which is a thing that isn't popular at the moment, and I know why, and I hope to get this changed. But it looks for the key markers for things that will help LLMs. Machines, I should say. So it looks at your JavaScript, it looks at your JSON LD, and it builds a picture of what your website looks like. It then compares the human view with the machine view and generates a report that says how you can improve and what should be done, the quick wins, the slow wins, and it's tailored to your website. My audit report also, while it's at it, only samples 10 pages from your website unless you want more done. A 10-page sample is enough to get a feel for what's going on. If you wanted to get your full website done, a large site like Nissan has got thousands of web pages. So you need to engage the machine lightly, find out what the main problems are, then get a plan, and then move forward into solving each of the steps. Yeah, I think it's incredibly useful. When I first wrote it, it was negative, and so with a bit of feedback from some of my testers, thank you, Chris, it is
It
much
was really
more.
banging on our site, man. But we got a lot of great valuable information from
Yeah,
it.
it now looks and gives a positive spin to everything that it does. Obviously, people built websites for humans. Building it for machines is a completely different proposition. It's tied with disabilities. It's tied with WCAG. It's tied with SEO, but it's different, and it's a different way of looking at things. And to go in deeply, as you said earlier, if you start writing and building your pages with proper metadata, that means you have to go back to the content source and decorate those too, which means that practically you're rethinking the way that your business presents itself to the world. And this is not a simple task, as you said. And to get it into and out of the far end means that you've got to get the source into the common crawl into the machines into the training into the live production. That can take many, many months. So you start where you can, you improve the live stuff. Eventually, the historical stuff will improve. It's a long tail, a very long tail.
It's a long tail. And from an agency perspective, it's interesting in that we've taken your concept, because I know that you have an agency kind of product line for your product as well. So any agency folks listening in, reach out to Tom. So we're kind of putting your product as the kind of the fundamental audit of a package, which basically helps large organizations optimize their site for the robots, knowing it was originally built for humans. But it's an interesting situation for us where we're pretty open and fully disclosed, but we're going back to our clients saying, wow, like when we look at this from a bot's perspective, there's a lot of work to be done. And sometimes we have to take a little bit of heat about, well, why didn't you factor that in? And that's fair enough. And it's like times change and, we're getting ahead of it. Now our clean SEO work certainly was helpful to get along the way. But you just find these kind of little holes everywhere. So we also have a very good process on after you get the audit from the MX audit, we have a really kind of clear, almost sprint-based workflow to start chipping at the low-hanging fruit and getting things all cleaned up. But awesome.
It's fair to say that the MX audit is a repeatable thing. Run it a month later, it'll tell you the differences between the two stage and the steps, and you will see that you're progressing and how much more work you've got to do. It's very useful.
Yeah, super cool, and look forward to working with you more on this stuff. Hey, any final comments before we wrap things up here, Tom?
I'd just like to say, well, one thing that really, really, really made this all work is the CMS Experts group. I really must thank Yanis and Matt Garape, because they're both involved in this. They got me into the AI HTML thing 2 years ago, before it was a problem. And I've been thinking, working and planning and talking to CMS experts. And it's been really, really good. So a shout out to those guys.
Awesome. Yeah, they do a great job of keeping that community strong. And that's where we met as well. So
yes.
Thanks for the good vibes along the way. Okay, well, hey, thanks to anyone who's been listening in now for a while. If you're tuning in, you're probably like kind of keen on the subject matter. And for folks who are watching this later on into the future, thanks for making some time. Reach out to us if we can answer any questions along the way. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks with episode 41. Tom, have a wonderful holiday. Stay warm. Enjoy the sunshine. And we're going to sign off right now. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Chris. Cheers.
Let me hit some buttons here.